Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest episode on the Fashion Fables podcast. Today, I am welcoming Selina Ho, founder and CEO of sustainable fashion brand known as Recloseted. Selina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Olivia. I'm really excited to be here.
So let's get started. If you can just begin by telling us a bit about yourself and what got you to where you are today in your career.
Yeah, this is a long journey, and so I'm going to do my best to keep it succinct. But I'm Selena. I'm the founder and CEO of Recloseted. We are the first one-stop shop for sustainable fashion from a consulting perspective. And I started Recloseted after I realized the harmful effects of the fashion industry. And the first time I realized that was actually when I wore a polyester shirt. And so I used to work a 9 to 5 job. We used to have to dress up. And so I had this shirt that I actually thought, like, I knew it wasn't silk, but I didn't think it was like fully 100% polyester. And so I found out after wearing it for hours and hours that I started getting a skin rash. And it was the first time anything like that had ever happened to me. And so I started looking at the label and I started trying to figure out what polyester really was. And I found out, it's made out of oil and petrochemicals and all these different things. And that really spurred me down this rabbit hole to want to try to educate people, raise awareness about it, and just do something. And so now, fast forward pretty much almost 5 years since that happened, I am now on a personal mission to really transform the harmful fashion industry. I do that through Recloseted. We help launch and scale sustainable fashion brands and help existing brands become more sustainable. And I really hate making the journey sound linear because there's a lot of different challenges and trials and tribulations throughout, but we can totally talk about that. And I'm happy to dive a little bit deeper as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I never really thought about what I'm actually putting on. Like when I wear clothes, it's kind of just like, oh, this looks so cute or this looks nice, so I'm gonna buy and wear it. But
Yeah.
I don't know, digging deeper, I know that there are a lot of people that are now more aware of what they're wearing because like you said, there's chemicals that you don't even know about. And when you dig deeper and realize that that's on your body, it might make you rethink what you do buy and the type of, I don't know, the cloth you're buying and just stuff like that. So that is awesome. And I think that it's an up and coming topic that is super important to be educated on. So thank you so much. I'm really glad that you're here today.
Yeah, of course. And just building upon that too, like I talked about how polyester is made out of oil and petrochemicals. And if you think about it, you're not going about to go to the gas station and put oil all over your body, right? Like that's not just something you would do, but why are you actually doing that without knowing it? And I think there's just so many dirty secrets of the fashion industry, and a lot of people don't know about it. They just see the glitzy, glamorous side of it, like the fashion weeks or the hauls. But there's just this whole other side to it. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk more about it.
Awesome. So, can you discuss how fashion designers are able to launch their own brands and make profit, maybe in a short period of time?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we work through with our clients in our Launch Your Brand program. But first and foremost, it's really important to take a customer first approach. Like, you can't just make product for the sake of making product anymore. I always say that the most sustainable product with the best materials, or like it's made from the most ethical manufacturing and everyone's paid a living wage, like you can make the most sustainable product ever. But if people aren't actually buying and using and wearing it, you've literally just made sustainable junk, right? Like it's just going to go to the landfill, and
Yeah.
it could be the most beautiful, most conscious thing ever, but it needs to actually solve a pain point and solve a problem. So we always tell our customers to do a customer first approach. And what that means is like figuring out who your ideal customer is, figuring out what their pain point is, and then actually just making a product to solve that pain point. And then once you've validated it, then you go out and you make it with your designer, with your manufacturer, all those different things. And that's the first part, like having products that actually people need. And then the second part is figuring out what your marketing strategy is and really making sure that you market well in advance. Because if you think about it, you could just launch something tomorrow, but it's probably going to flop because you haven't taken the time to intentionally build up your community. And as you likely know, and as your listeners likely know, that takes time, right? So just making sure you're really intentional throughout the whole process. And, you mentioned a short period of time. And when we work with our clients, we help them go from idea to successful launch in 6 months. But if you're doing this on your own, that's really not possible because you need to take the time to intentionally like find really good manufacturers, find really good materials. And so spend the time to do that if you're not working with someone. And I cannot stress that enough because you want to make sure that what you're putting out there you can be proud of and is actually making that impact that you want it to make.
Right. I feel like there's so many designers out there, and like there's obviously those who get super successful and are able to make a lot of profit based on what they sell, but there's also those people who kind of struggle. So I thought this was really interesting, and I'm sure a lot of, fashion designers might be interested in this topic because everyone wants their brand to be the best, but it's kind of like you don't there's certain little techniques and stuff that, like you were saying, that can kind of get you to that next level. And all these designer brands get pricey and expensive, so it's like if people are willing to buy them, that must mean that the quality of what you're selling is really good and is able to make that profit. So yeah, I think that's really cool, and it can even go in relation to just the day-to-day person, because it's like it helps you like know like what are you actually buying, and how are these designers getting to where you are. I also think it's a bunch of like what the product looks like presentation. Like for example, like Gucci and Burberry, like they have that certain like specific look that people are intrigued in because it's like classy and all that. So I think a lot plays a role into it. And that's super interesting.
Yeah, totally. And it does also go back to the customer first approach too, right? Like figure out what your ideal customer really, really needs. And I know a lot of the times when I say that, people kind of roll their eyes and they're like, it's just fashion, it's just clothes. Like, what do you mean? But we wear clothes on a daily basis. Everyone wears clothing, and you and a lot of other people have problems with your clothes in your wardrobe, right? Like sometimes you're like, oh, I wish there was this, or I wish there was that. And so just stay curious throughout this entire process and building a household name like Gucci or, LV or whatever, like that takes time, but you also have to really intentionally know who you're going after and make products that are aligned with that. So it takes time, it takes really intentional effort, but I really believe that everyone and anyone that wants to do it can do it if they really dedicate themselves to it.
Yes, 100%. So, what are some top trends in the sustainable fashion area, and maybe why do you feel people should pay attention to them? Like a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily like to say trend per se, but I do think sustainable fashion is becoming more and more relevant and important because, as you know, first of all, from a consumer perspective, like Gen Z and people, like they are really quickly realizing the impact of fashion on the environment and they're enacting and demanding more change. So, for brands to be able to future proof themselves and be able to survive, like you need to have something beyond just, trendy clothes or like fashionable pieces. Like there needs to be more and you need to do better. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing as well is just realizing that who is the person that sewed the garments? Where did this all come from? It's all been very gray traditionally in the fashion industry, and it's been such a big problem. And so lately, we've been talking and working with our clients to leverage really cool technology like blockchain and Web3 elements to be able to trace all these things. And for new brands listening, like this is not something that I want you to be stressing out over right now, but it is just, keeping your eye on this space and recognizing that with these technologies, we can actually improve a lot of things in the sustainable fashion area. And then last but not least, just really thinking about circularity. So, what I mean by that is fashion has traditionally been like a take, make, consume, and discard model. And so, at the end of the clothing's life, it usually just goes and rots in the landfill. And it's really sad and really devastating. So, for new brands starting out, really being intentional about how you can design with circularity in mind and really designing pieces not to just be worn a couple times, but to be loved and worn over and over again. And maybe it's like versatility, like different ways you can wear things. Like one of our clients has a blazer set that can be worn as a blazer, a two-piece set, just the top or just the skirt. And like something like that is really what I think new brands should be doing.
Yeah, no, that's totally like super awesome to hear because I just feel like so many people like like stuff just because they like it, but they're not like thinking like, oh, like, is this gonna be like useful for me in different seasons, or is just this kind of just be like for like a wedding or something where you can wear it once. And I think like a lot of people may end up struggling with this because like you don't want to break the bank with what you're buying, but also like you want to make sure that like even if it's almost like if something's a little more expensive, but you feel like you can use it more versatily, it might be a little bit better than something cheaper that may just stay in your closet. And I find that happens a lot where like um maybe even like girls just like feel like, oh, they need something that moment because it might be trendy, but in the long run they don't actually wear it a lot. And then when you go to clean out your closet, you have like bags of clothing that like you've worn once, and it's like a shame because I mean, even if they go to like Goodwill or something like that, it's still like you the one who bought it and you're not really wearing it anymore. So I think that like you just need to also be like considerable um about what you buy. And it's also super important to like make sure that like if you do want to give away clothes, it's maybe like you want to sell on Poshmark or to make some profit off of it, or like not just throwing it out or maybe just donating it. I feel like is better because like you said, like like the life of a shirt can just like be in the trash. Like you'd rather buy something where you can like wear it more than once and mix and match with that. My mom tells me that all the time, like you have so much clothes, you just have to know how to wear them. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah, totally. And building upon what you said too, like sustainable fashion, I think has this reputation of being kind of inaccessible because of the price points. But really, like if you think about thrifting or you think about like swapping clothes with your friends or you go to even a clothing swap in your area, like those are all lower cost ways to try to bring something new into your wardrobe without breaking the bank, like you're saying. And then the other thing too is when you're buying something new, instead of thinking like, oh, I'm buying this sweater for $150, like think about the cost per wear, because if you're going to wear that sweater at least 50 times, like that's a $3 cost per wear versus if you bought like a fast fashion sweater that's $50, like yes, it's a lower upfront cost, but if you're only going to wear it twice, like that's a $25 cost per wear, right? So like really starting to shift your mindset around clothes, and to your point too, like taking responsibility for the clothes that you bring into your life. Like a lot of the times people will donate things and kind of just like feel good about it. But a lot of the times that goes to areas in the global south and they're left to deal with all our clothes. And you can actually Google this. It's like mountains and mountains of clothing. It's so devastating and heartbreaking. And they don't have the infrastructure and the manpower to deal with all this trash. And so it's just sitting there and it's rotting and it's really, really heartbreaking. So you mentioned selling things. I always think that's great because if someone's going to pay for something, that means they're actually going to wear it and use it. So try to sell, try to swap with friends. And yeah, if you can upcycle and downcycle things too, like, putting patches on things or like turning it into rags, that can also really help too.
Yes, thank you so much for that. So do you have any tips to share regarding wardrobe? We kind of touched on this, but how can one give their wardrobe maybe more of an eco-friendly makeover, and just make their clothing be a little longer lasting?
Yeah. So the first thing you can do is really start to buy less. Like that's the easiest thing you can do and just be more intentional with what you're buying. So every single thing that you're bringing into your wardrobe, really intend to wear it at least like 50 to 100 times. And if you need something for like a one-off occasion, like a wedding or like a birthday party, see if you can borrow something or even use like Rent the Runway or something like that, so that if you just want something for one occasion, that can be more sustainable. And then the other thing too is I used to be a fast fashion consumer and I have still things from like fast fashion brands like Zara, H&M, those kind of things, but I still keep them and I still have them in my closet and I still wear them because it, in my opinion, is more sustainable for me to continue to use them versus like throw them out and try to incorporate new sustainable materials in. So if there's people listening and they have things from fast fashion brands, don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel like you need to throw it all out and put in new like sustainable pieces. Like I actually think that's less conscious. And what you can do instead is just continue to take care of them and continue to set up your wardrobe in a way where you know what's in it. I think that's key too. Like a lot of the times people just don't even know what's in their closet and they end up buying like the exact same thing they already have. So
Mhm.
making sure you do that. And I also have a resource too. I self-published a handbook where I did like a year of research and figured out how you can go from being like a fast fashion consumer to a conscious fashion consumer. So if folks want to purchase it or interested, it's just on our website. It's just recloseted.com/handbook. And for folks listening, you can use code podcast for 10% off.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. So yeah, definitely I think a lot of people can use that to their advantage. Buying less is something that I definitely struggle with because like you see something and you think it's cute and you're like, oh well, they're not gonna have it if I don't buy it and they have it in my size. So there's just a bunch of things that like sometimes I don't think about where I could be like having more of like an eco-friendly closet. But I think it's also important the point that you mentioned about like not like feeling super bad about it and throwing it out because like you just have to go forward rather than going backwards. And you know what I mean? So it's almost like a waste of time to just throw your clothes out, but you can just start making healthy and conscious decisions with your closet from this time on. I think that's important. I definitely need to like look more into that stuff too, because like I just personally sometimes I buy like certain brands because I know they fit me and I know I like them. Like Zara, I personally like a lot. But I mean, sometimes their stuff can just look trendy. So I think it's a matter of like what works for you best because everyone has their own style. And like this by no means is to like emphasize that everyone should wear the same eco-friendly clothing, but it's just a matter of being more conscious because like what you said, there's like dumps of clothing that people just no longer wear and it's a little bit just like harmful for the environment and just sad in general. So I think if people can just make little healthy conscious steps every day, the fast fashion world might be a little less of an issue, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I always say too, like, take it one step at a time because sometimes when you first find out about the sustainable fashion space or even like conscious living in general, it can get really overwhelming and then you're really hard on yourself not to be perfect. It's the exact same thing with becoming vegan with food. Like, you feel bad all of a sudden if you're like craving bacon or something, but like you are going to try to do it in an intentional and sustainable way. So it's not going to happen overnight and just take little steps, right? Like baby steps. And don't be too hard on yourself as well. And for folks too, if they're interested to learn more, like the True Cost documentary is so good. And it really kicked my butt to learning more about the industry in regards to fashion. So if people want like another resource, they can check out that documentary as well.
Thank you. That's awesome. So burnout is a popular concern for many entrepreneurs, especially in the world today. I feel like there's a lot of competition with stores and just people wanting to succeed in their businesses. So, how can entrepreneurs, specifically in the fashion industry, avoid this burnout and even maybe live an international life while making an impact with their business at the same time?
Yeah, this has been something I have learned through personal experience. So, when I first started my business, Recloseted, I actually side hustled, meaning that I worked a 9 to 5 job to support myself and be able to invest in the business. And then I also did Recloseted as well. So, I was basically working like 12 to 14-hour days for 7 days a week. And it was gnarly for sure. And I learned a lot throughout this entire process. And the first thing is to like really listen to yourself and check in with yourself every single day because I think a lot of the times we'll just continue to push ourselves and we'll just keep going and we don't really realize that things need to change until you actually burn out, and that's like your body's way of forcing you to stop and forcing you to do something about it. And I always say that you either rest on your terms or your body is going to make you rest, right? And so if you check in every single day, and I do this in the morning and then in the evening now, but I just ask myself on a scale of 1 to 10 how overwhelmed I feel. And for me personally, if I'm feeling like I'm a 7 or higher, then I know I kind of need to, ease up on the gas pedal a little bit. And I'll start to implement some self care, if you will. And so self care also has a really bad rep. I think it like people just think about taking a vacation or like going to the spa or getting a facial, but there's like easy, low cost ways you can do self care, like just sleeping enough, drinking water, eating healthier food, going for walks, like implementing those on a daily basis can be really helpful. And then another tip I have too is to make use of the 3 Ds, which are delegate, delete, and delay. So, taking a look at your plate, if you're feeling like really overwhelmed, what can you delete? What do you not have to do? What can you delegate to someone else because you don't have to do it? And what can you delay or push back because it's not urgent right now? And I think that can be really helpful as well. And then just, yeah, being compassionate with yourself too. Like, I think that there's such a big culture in society of like hustling and being productive. And I really think that we're not machines. Like, you don't need to take pride in how productive you are, how many things you've checked off the to do list. Like, really make sure that you take care of yourself, but also build a business that you're passionate about. So, I hope those tips are helpful for folks. But yeah, it really does take time. And I think that it took me at least burning out like 4 to 5 times to really get a grasp and a handle on this. So, it's also about like learning more about yourself and listening to your body.
That's super helpful, honestly, because especially at an age where you feel like you're juggling a lot, you have a lot on your plate. Like, for example, if you go to college as well as like maintaining like other little passions you have, it can become stressful. And so sometimes you feel like there's like no hope and like you just have to keep going because, like you said, society almost puts that on you where it's like you have to be productive or else like you're not going to be successful and things like that. But the way I see it is like in order to be successful, you have to take breaks and take a step back and really think about what you want in life for you to keep going and for you to keep pressing forward. Because if you keep going and kind of just doing what other people expect you to do, then you're never going to truly do what you want to do. And I think that's really important to kind of finding who you want to be. Because I feel like in this world, like there's so many passions out there, and it's like you never want to feel like you can't do something because you're setting yourself back. Like you definitely can, and things can be stressful, but I think the best thing is to keep trying your best. And if you have a goal or if you have a passion, to like go for it, because like if you just start, then you never know where it can lead and where you can end up. So I think that's really important to know. And like you said, like you kind of have to do what you have to do in order to get where you want to be. And that can mean like late nights or whatever you have to do, or maybe you have to go somewhere different for a day to get experience. But you also have to prioritize yourself, and if you prioritize yourself and take those little self-care things, like literally sleeping enough helps me so much, because it's like when you don't sleep your brain doesn't function the same. And also just like drinking water and all those things you said, definitely like going for facial is nice, but it's not at everyone's expense. So you kind of have to do what's best for you, and find your passion, because there's everyone has a passion. You just have to dig a little deeper sometimes.
Yeah, totally. And the other thing too is if you're just in a season of hustle, I also like looking at life in seasons, you just know that and you just know that you have to put in the work. And for folks listening, if they want to start their own business, like it is a lot of work, right? But you just need to know that that's just the season you're in. It doesn't mean that that's going to be your life for the rest of your life. That's not what your life's going to look like forever. It's just the season. And also, don't feel bad too if you do have to work a lot. I think there's shame on both sides. There's shame on not working enough, but also shame if you work too much. And it's just so weird. So try to block out that noise as much as possible and just focus on you, focus on your passion and your goals, to your point. And just know that throughout all that, you want to make sure you're taking care of yourself and you're prioritizing yourself. And the other thing with that too is just knowing that you may have to sacrifice some things. That's just the reality of things. So when I was side hustling, like I didn't see my friends as much. I didn't get to go out as much. And I was fine with that because I really believed in what I was doing and my passion, right? So that's the other thing too. Like I truly believe you can have it all, just not all at the same time.
That was so good to hear, and that's honestly helpful for me too, like, because 'cause I'm going to be starting college soon, and it's like, sometimes overwhelming to think like, "Oh, how am I gonna balance schoolwork plus my podcast and stuff like that?" But I feel like if you wanna get it done, you will, and if you wanna make time for something, you will. So, I think it's just a matter of going day by day, like you also said, and kinda just doing your best. That's really what
Totally.
I want to.
Yeah.
So, how may entrepreneurs scale their business and keep it successful? Maybe what are some of the most important tips to share for anyone interested?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is really getting clear on how big you want to go because a lot of the times people will say, like, I want $1 million business or I want like a $10 million business or whatever that looks like. But a lot of the times it's influenced by society and what other people say is successful. So get clear on exactly how big you want your business to be and what kind of lifestyle you want, and then work backwards. So it's really important to get clear on the vision and then work backwards and make those efforts. So I think that's really important. And then the other thing as well is learning that you need to start to invest in team members and delegate, because a lot of the times for solopreneurs, like you're just starting out with yourself, but you can only do so much without burning out, like we just talked about. And if you really want to scale your impact and your business, you need to start to delegate. So just starting to learn how to figure out what to outsource, how to outsource it, and how to manage team members is really, really important if you want to be successful and scale.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I definitely think sometimes people think they can do everything by themselves or because they want all the credit and stuff like that. But sometimes, like, you don't have all the answers and it's okay to reach out for help. Sometimes it's better because you get clear of what you want to actually do and you get some other opinions from people who have been successful in that exact field. And you can almost like networking, you kind of have to learn about it in order for you to do it yourself because nobody learns things from thin air. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's important, everything that you were saying, to just kind of find like what you want for yourself and then go from there. Because like everyone has a different vision for their life and what they want that to look like. And that's totally a personal choice. Like, I don't think anyone should let external validation come into play with this because if you want to be successful in your certain field or your certain passion, then it's kind of up to you to find how far you want to go.
Totally.
I'm glad we agree on that. I think it's a really special topic to touch on because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, and I feel like a lot of people want to become business owners, but just don't really know like where to start.
Yeah, and it's really overwhelming because there is so much, but once you figure out where you want to go and how far you want to go, it's totally fine too if you change your mind later. That's totally okay. Once you have though that North Star, you can then start to chip away at it and it becomes less overwhelming.
Definitely. So finally, Selena, can you just share a pivotal accomplishment in your career this far? Maybe how it has shaped you into the person and entrepreneur you are today. That would be great.
Yeah. So there's been so many pivotal moments, but I would say like the most pivotal is after I graduated university. I have a Bachelor of Commerce, and in college and in university, I feel like for specific colleges, unless you're going to like an entrepreneurship school or something like that, like working a 9 to 5 job and climbing the corporate ladder is kind of epitomized and like the true definition of success. But I did the whole thing. I recruited, I got a really great job that looked great on paper. But then 6 months into it, I remember being in my cubicle and being like, I I hate my life. I feel so miserable. Like I'm working on these really big projects that are like multi-million dollar projects and I'm learning a lot, but what I'm working on is not aligned with my values. It doesn't make me happy. I'm not passionate about this and I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. But on paper, it is exactly what society told me I should be doing. You know, like I graduated and I went to work this job. And so what I ended up doing was just working and starting Recloseted as a passion project to really like get that outlet out there. And I really encourage anyone listening, like if you're in a job right now that you don't like, or if you're in a situation where you feel like you're helpless or whatever, try to find other ways to bring your passion and your interests into your life, be it like volunteering or be it even starting some sort of like blog or podcast like Olivia has done. Like, really try to have an outlet for that so that you feel like you can take control of your life and you can take control of your career, because that one passion project has now turned into a full-fledged business. That's my main source of income. And it started 5 years ago. And just know that it also takes time as well. And I kind of talk about my journey on my podcast as well. But it's definitely a pivotal moment when you decide to take control of your life and actually chase after your dreams.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely. I feel like it can be a little stressful coming out of university because you kind of just want to get that job and like get into the real world, as they say. So, I can just imagine how that felt, but it's also awesome that you kind of took it upon yourself to like be like, okay, like what do I want for myself and what's going to make me happy? And you kind of took control of that and it obviously worked out for you. And that's so awesome that you now have this full-fledged business where you can kind of have this as your full income because it just meant that you took initiative and kind of did what you wanted to do and it worked out for you with hard work and dedication. I'm sure a lot of, thoughts and planning. But thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's definitely inspiring. And I'm so happy that you were able to chat today.
Yeah, of course. And then for anyone listening, we have a lot of free resources for your community too. So if anyone wants to launch a sustainable fashion brand, I'm doing a free masterclass in September. They can sign up at recloseted.com/masterclass. We also have a free ebook too with worksheets, and they can get it at recloseted.com/launch. And I also started a YouTube channel. YouTube is so much work. It's no joke, but you can just search for us for just Recloseted Consulting.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thanks for having me, Olivia. I'm really excited to be able to share this, and I hope it was helpful for folks.